Hello and welcome to Ode to Games. I'm Kevin Valley, joined alongside Logan Plant. How you doing, Logan?
Doing all right, Kev. We're back.
We are back after an unplanned week away.
That's
Uh,
frustrating.
yeah, if you followed us on Twitter, we had some issues during recording that meant that we had no audio, basically. So
Yep.
no episode last week, which sucks because it was a good one.
It
It
was a
was
good one. We're going to revisit some of it today.
Yeah, we are because some of it's good conversation that we
Yeah.
can't pass up talking about. Yeah, so that sucked, but we're back this week. Let's hop right into some news. First of all, let's quickly touch on something that we were talking about last week before we lost all of the audio. This comes from PlayStation and Naughty Dog. So there is a new studio that is going to be helping Naughty Dog develop a major PlayStation game. Now they are not doing, obviously it's a side studio, so they're not going to be doing an original game. And Naughty Dog seemingly doesn't feel like they need to go back to some of these series like Uncharted. They are done with it, but they have said in the past they are fine with other studios coming in and doing side games or spin-offs. And from what it sounds like with this studio and the game that they are working on, Uncharted seems like it's there's a pretty good chance that that's what they're working on. Um,
Yep.
so what do you think of this? Where do you think this new studio could go with Naughty Dog?
Yeah, I definitely think that it sounds like Uncharted based on what it is. It is a third-person action adventure game with melee and ranged combat, which yeah, you can say is pretty much every PlayStation
Yeah.
exclusive. But as for Naughty Dog, that sounds like Uncharted, right? Like I don't know. I don't think that PlayStation they're at a point right now where they're really mostly going for these cinematic games. So I don't think they're going back to the well for like Jack and Daxter. And there's no way it's like a Last of Us spinoff because Naughty Dog is still handling Last of Us internally. We saw the big reports like what about a year ago that it was supposed to be Uncharted 1 that was remade and that maybe Bend was going to remake Uncharted, but they didn't want to, and now they're making their own new IP. And then eventually it all turned into just a remake of The Last of Us and The Last of Us Part 1 that came out in September. And so I definitely think they want to go back to the Uncharted well. We're seeing this with pretty much every franchise they have. They are making a new game along with the franchises that have movie or series adaptations. Like even Twisted Metal is getting a new game to coincide with its series. And then you have things like God of War Ragnarok and a God of War show and Horizon and maybe a Horizon remaster along with the Horizon show. And so it makes sense that with this Uncharted movie franchise, of which we're pretty sure we're going to get a sequel, that they would want to go and make a new game to put on shelves alongside that. I thought that the Legacy of Thieves collection was just that, but maybe there will be some new Uncharted to coincide with the next Uncharted movie, like how Legacy of Thieves collection came out like a month before the Uncharted movie. So I think it makes sense, and I hope it focuses on Victor Sullivan. And yeah, I'm down for new Uncharted.
That's the obvious
I'm
pick,
down.
right?
Oh yeah, I think
Victor
so.
Sullivan, yeah.
I think so. And what I said on our Lost show is just don't go back to Nate. I said that I'm fine with Nate if it doesn't take place after Uncharted 4. If it's some sort of prequel story that still features Nathan Drake, I think that's great, but don't touch their story after Uncharted 4 because that is the best send-off and ending for a character. And I just hope that studios can just leave it alone. Like we talked about, I think even Kiryu is coming back after his
Yeah.
big send-off in Yakuza 6.
Yeah, and they did such a good job with Uncharted 4. And if they went back again and kind of not retconned it per se, but kind of kept it going along, it would feel
Yeah.
like ground that we've already treaded on because that's basically how Uncharted 4 went. Maybe
Yeah.
Uncharted 3 didn't have
Mhm.
as good of an ending as 4 did, but it was already that concept of, oh, I'm done. I I don't want to do this anymore. And then no, wait, I do want to do this. And then it gets roped back in again. I feel like if they went back to that, it'd just be treading the same ground that
And I
Uncharted
just
4 did.
don't really believe, based on the epilogue, that he would get pulled back into the same thing again. I just don't. Yeah, just based on how the story all comes to an end and what we see of their lives down the line, I'm like, I don't believe that there was some secret last adventure in there. No, Uncharted 4 is the last adventure. I don't really see anything else that you could do with those characters. And yeah, he was only pulled back in because of his brother. It's like, what are you going to whip out another sibling or another
Yeah.
family member that ropes him back in? Like, I don't think so. Yeah, he's done.
Yeah, but there is a decent amount of opportunity with some of that prequel stuff. I mean, they've gone back to that a little bit in Uncharted 4, definitely with his brother, and then was it Uncharted 3?
3 is the other one with
3
the
that had
flashbacks. Yeah.
the flashbacks to him and Victor Sullivan. I feel like if they did want to go back and make an original game in the Uncharted universe, I think that there's a lot of opportunity in that area if you want to bring back a lot of the same characters and not try and go, completely off and try something very new. I think that there's a lot of
Mhm.
opportunity there.
Yeah. Yeah, I would really like it though. Uncharted is awesome, and I haven't played those games in a long time. I'd really like a new one. It's made me want to play 4 again because 4 is just like the perfect game. It's so great.
Yeah, I really want to go back to 4. I want to go back to Lost Legacy too. Um,
Yeah,
Having only played that once with Zach when it came out, that's one that I think I should experience again. It's good that
yeah,
they're on PS5. I hope that 1 through 3 get kind of a dedicated PS5 release of some kind. But
yeah. I feel like that'd take more work than the Nathan Drake collection. Like that's probably
and
about as
that's
good as those are going to look.
and that's why it's not there.
Yeah,
One can hope
yeah,
though. Some other bits of news. We have talked about CD Projekt Red and the fact that they are announcing game after game with very little, if anything, to show for it beyond here is a title. We are working on this game, and that is it. Please wait for more details. And we're going back to it yet again.
hmm
So this is one of those projects that CD Projekt Red was talking about a little while back when they had all of these projects that they were going through. For whatever reason, they felt the need to announce 5+ games at one
yeah.
time. And this is going to be a remake of the original Witcher game, which I do think is very cool. I know that The Witcher 2 is already a little bit hard to go back to after The Witcher 3 from what I've heard, and I have to imagine that the original Witcher is very hard to go back to, especially for people that basically have only played The Witcher 3. That's the biggest one, the one that most people have played.
Yeah.
So I think that it's an obvious move to go back and remake the original Witcher. Just why do we need to know about this now? Because
And why
basically
did
the
they
announcement is we're making this game, we're using Unreal Engine 5, and that's it.
And why did they need to announce these like not at the same time, right? This is one of the new games they announced in October, and then like 2 weeks after they reveal these code names, they're like, "Hey, you know that code name we just dropped? Well, it's a Witcher remake." Like, why didn't they just say back then that it was a Witcher remake? That made really little sense to me. But yeah, I do think that it's a cool pick. It is cool to know what one of these projects is, but it's going to be so far off. But yeah, like you said, Kevin, it does make sense. It is a good one. Witcher 3 is really that one that set the series kind of into mainstream popularity. And so to see a remake of the original, I think is a really good move, but it's just going to be so far off. Rebuilt from the ground up, early stages of development. That sounds like 4+ years away. Like this thing is not coming anytime soon.
Well, and I know that they have a bunch of other studios and they've tried to move things around so that they're better equipped to work on multiple things at one time, but you have to imagine that there's a little bit of growing pains or adjustments that you have to make when
Yeah.
you're simultaneously juggling all of these games. Again, not all with the exact same studio, but there's got to be at least some overlap here with all of these different titles going on at about the same time.
Yep. Yeah. So this is in collaboration with Fool's Theory. So it's not a strictly internal project, but still, there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on at CD Projekt. And then there's that other Witcher drama from over the weekend, not game related.
Oh
But
yeah,
did
with
you
the
see all
TV
that,
show,
Kev?
the
Yeah.
recasting. Yeah.
Yeah. Henry Cavill out, Liam Hemsworth in. Yeah, that's super bizarre. I was talking to Zach about it. He said he's not even going to watch season 3 anymore because he's so upset about the casting news. He's done. He's out. And I honestly think that's true for a lot of people. And Henry Cavill had said that he was in for 7 seasons, and then the report came out like what, a week, 2 weeks ago that was like, the Witcher writers don't like the games or the books, and we're going to take
Oh
it in their
yeah,
own
there was
direction.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
there was
And so
that news article.
everybody thinks that like Cavill's leaving because he's back in the fold as Superman, but really it's because he said that his condition for staying was that they stay faithful to the source material. And that's he would stay as long as the writers did. And then 2 weeks ago we learned that the writers hate The Witcher and are taking the show in their own direction. And then now we learn that he's out. It's like that seems like doesn't seem like a coincidence on the timing there.
The timing of the Superman thing is also kind of wild that all of
Yeah.
that kind of coincides at the exact same
Yeah.
time.
Both could definitely be a factor. Yeah, like that could be part of the reason too, is that he's busier now and maybe just the direction they're taking the show just made it easier to leave
Yeah.
than it would have been.
Yeah, that stuff's harder with if it's strictly voice acting, that's still can be hard. That can be a very jarring change. But man, when you're like completely recasting the character and they look completely different, like it's just weird because you're watching it and you know it's not the same person. Like you can tell me
Yep.
over and over that this is the exact same character. He is the Witcher. He is the same person, but I know that he's not because it's a
Yeah.
completely different dude. And
Yep.
if other characters are acting like, "Oh, I've known this man for years." Like, yeah, did you not notice that he just completely changed body and like bone
Like
structures? Face is completely different.
I wonder if they're gonna address it in the show, like is he gonna undergo some accident and need to get like some spell cast on his body to fix him and then he comes out looking different, or are they just gonna like swap
Not
him
care.
out and not say a word? Yeah.
Yeah, be curious to see. But I saw a lot of that sentiment going on where it's just like, yeah, I'm not feeling that. Sorry.
Mhm. Yep, I don't know how long that show's gonna make it with the new actor.
Yeah, well, have a feeling that they'll probably know relatively soon after that fourth season. If things really drop off a cliff, maybe they have to reevaluate.
Yeah.
But again, you never know. Some people will say, like, oh, I'm done. I'm not watching that. And then they go watch it anyways. How- we won't really know until that season comes out and if they're actually interested in doing another season. But
Yeah.
definitely very weird. And I feel for the people who got really into that series and now just doesn't feel right to keep watching when the main character is just a completely different dude.
Yeah.
No shade on Hemsworth, but you know.
Also 3 seasons in, and they announced it before the 3rd season has aired, so there's
Right.
still one more
Yeah.
season with Henry Cavill now. It's
Yeah, so
just
you're watching this season. He's just gonna disappear. I'm watching a dead man walking here.
yeah. I feel like they should have just waited, but I guess it would have gotten out anyways, but it's just yeah, because like I said, Zach's a huge fan of the Witcher 3 and the show, and he's just done with the show because of this news, and there's still a season of Henry Cavill. Yeah, it's bizarre.
Yeah. That's when is the third season supposed to come out? Is that
I don't
really
know.
soon?
I think soon. They usually come out in December, so I wonder if the
Okay.
third one is coming out like next month. I don't know when it is,
Oof.
but yeah, I'm here to announce that in 4 weeks, a different actor will be taking over for me on the podcast, but it'll still be Logan, and they'll still be in
Yeah.
this room and everything. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Nothing will change except
nothing,
major things will change. It'll
nothing
be
will
the same
change.
though.
Yeah, keep watching, please.
Look forward to that. And Logan will just completely change. But we won't address it in any way. It'll just
Hmm.
be the exact same thing. Moving over to Xbox, they have been in a battle with PlayStation over Activision Blizzard. Microsoft is trying to get this deal through, and Sony is trying to bring up why it would be a really bad move if Activision Blizzard and Xbox merged. A lot of it stemming from Call of Duty and the fact that there is a chance that they could take it just to Xbox and remove it from PlayStation for any future games. And now Phil Spencer is coming out and almost definitively saying that Call of Duty would not be leaving PlayStation if this deal goes through, which to me feels like very interesting timing. Like if that was the plan, you could have said that a while ago instead of just
Yeah,
kind of hopping around it and being like, oh, we definitely want to have Call of Duty on PlayStation in the very near future. In the
yeah,
near future, there were reports that there was a contract that went through the next like 3 or 4 games. I kind of think that this is in response to Sony talking to the regulators and trying to get this deal shot down. And if Xbox comes out and says, no, Call of Duty is going to stay on PlayStation, no big deal, guys. There's a better chance that this thing is going to go through, because it seems like very calculated timing. You could have come out and said this a while ago if that was the plan from the start.
Yeah, I do think it makes sense, though. I wonder if maybe they didn't know the plan from the start, and maybe they've decided and looked at the numbers since this acquisition's been planned. But I do agree with you; it does feel like too convenient of timing, but I think it makes sense. I think Call of Duty is one that you'd want to stay on multiple platforms, especially because you're going to start charging $70 for it. So if you have it on Game Pass on your own console and $70 on PlayStation, and all the DLC and all the marketing is now paired with Xbox rather than PlayStation, I do think that still makes a big difference in getting more people to adopt your platform and subscribe to Game Pass. But yeah, I think that it is like Minecraft, where it is one of those big ones that you want to stay on every platform possible, just because of how big it is and how much it sells. I don't think it's one that you would say, nope, only here. Like Starfield and Elder Scrolls toe that line, but at the end, it makes sense for them to go exclusive, those single player games. But for a multiplayer game that is consistently like the best selling game of the year every year,
Just broke records. Quality notwithstanding.
Yeah.
But Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 broke records for the biggest PlayStation Store launch ever. So there is still a lot of value in keeping that on PlayStation.
Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised if that happened, because so many people have heard maybe this is the last time it's going to be on PlayStation, the last one. But also Modern Warfare 2, that was going to be huge, just how big the original Modern Warfare 2 was. But yeah, I think it makes sense to keep it around on PlayStation. I think they will. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's like, oh, DLC exclusive for 1 month on Xbox, things like that they've done before in the PlayStation 4 generation, that are now just kind of switching sides.
And this is only one title there. Of course, it is Activision's biggest cash cow, of course, but there is still a bunch of other games in that catalog that they could take to be a first party Xbox exclusive, and keep Call of Duty on PlayStation, because it makes the most sense, because it is the biggest and will bring in the most amount of money from other parties' platforms. So
yeah, I think Diablo is only on Xbox and PC. I don't think that's coming to. Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure.
Okay. Already?
I don't know, because that might be wrong. That might be wrong.
I mean, in the future, if the deal goes through, it probably will be.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Timing a little bit funky, but this makes sense, I think. To keep it on PlayStation. And lastly, let's move over to
Diablo's on PlayStation. I was wrong. It is on PlayStation. Okay. Yeah, I'm just used to see. I'm already doing it. I'm already associating with Xbox because it's in all of their presentations. Yeah.
Again,
it's going to be on Game Pass.
If the deal goes through, I would not be surprised if whatever comes next from Diablo is Xbox exclusive, because that's not a big enough game to warrant being multi-platform like a Minecraft or like a Call of Duty. Those are very specific titles that I think they would want to stay multi-platform.
Yeah.
Let's move to PlayStation for a little bit and wrap up the news for this week. So we have some more sales numbers for the PS5. It's reached 25 million units sold. They've said that they're going to keep on ramping up production. I know that when you've said they're a little bit easier to find in America.
Yeah, a lot easier to find.
They need to be sending some of those Japan's way. It's still an absolute nightmare over here.
Yeah.
Personally, I think that they're focusing on the U.S. market a little bit too much. But 25 million, and they have also said that PS Plus subscriptions have fallen a little bit by about 2 million. Now, this doesn't take into account the fact that they have multiple tiers now. So despite the fact that subscription levels would fall, that doesn't necessarily mean that revenue also falls, because people may be upgraded to a higher tier of PlayStation Plus. But it also sounds like, because it's been a slower adoption rate for PS5 purely because people haven't been able to find it, that has played into the fact that some people have dropped off from PlayStation Plus because not enough PS5s to go around yet.
Yeah, these numbers don't really say anything. It's just like people with their PS4 that are no longer really playing because the PS4 is a decade old now, just have stopped subscribing. But maybe when those people pick up a PS5, they'd re up. And the articles and the quotes say as much like, yeah, it's just the adoption of PS5. Like you're still at 45 million with only 25 million PS5s out there in
Yeah.
the wild. So that's still a lot of people that don't own your newest platform that are still paying you for the online service. So yeah, I think it'll trickle back up as a lot of the headlines were like, "Oh, PS5's dropped 2 million since the revamp," and I'm like, it's not because of the revamp. It's just kind of the timing that has happened. Like, I just think it's because people without PS5s are starting to drop off a little bit because the revamp changed nothing if you subscribe to the
Right.
lowest tier.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
It's the
it's
same
still the
exact
exact same
service.
for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, like you said, 2 million. So that means if 4 million people subscribe to the $90 or 2 million people subscribe to the 120, they're making the same amount of revenue. And I don't know the numbers on that, but I bet that it's more than that.
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
I still have had no interest in upgrading at all. I'm
Hmm.
fine. I'm fine with
Yeah.
my very base level PlayStation Plus subscription. That's fine.
Yep.
Fine for me.
Yep. If there were first party games on that thing, that could change.
Oh
But
yeah, but that's not
yeah,
going to happen.
that's not gonna
I
happen.
I can't imagine that happening really ever, but definitely not for the next several years
Hmm.
at the very least.
A related news story we talked about last week in the Lost Show is that Game Pass could get a price hike soon, and maybe Xbox consoles
Yeah.
too. Phil Spencer was saying so. I'd like to know what happens to the Game Pass subscription numbers after that happens, because I've talked about it on the show a couple times that I'm not subscribing right now. Just because it's not worth it for me when I'm not actively playing anything, and there's been no first party content on the horizon, and yeah, Phil Spencer even said it's been too long since we've had an exclusive game. He said that earlier this week.
Yeah.
So
I
if
mean,
they
it's
do,
coming, but
mhm. It can't come yet. It can't come until it's like next year. Like, oh, Starfield's out. Game Pass goes up $3 a month or whatever it's going to be. I hope
yeah.
it's not too much.
Yeah. Wait and see on that, because we also don't know if there's going to be a significant price hike to the consoles themselves either.
Yep.
And what regions that will be in, since PlayStation conveniently left out America with the
Yep.
price hikes. Is Xbox going to do the same thing, or are they going to do price hikes around the board? I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's the nature of these things, right? You with these subscription services where the growth can't last forever. And sometimes, if they're going to try and add more services to the subscription, the only other option is to make it more expensive, or
Yeah.
maybe add certain tiers, but by proxy, also meaning that if you were paying the same amount, but 2 years later, maybe you have less to access because they have been split up into multiple tiers. I
Yeah.
feel like that's something that you kind of have to expect, whether that's video streaming or game libraries like these, like,
Yeah.
which sucks. It kind of feels like you have to get in at the right time and enjoy it while it lasts, because it's not going to
Yeah.
be like that for forever.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Speaking of retreading things from the lost episode last week, let's get into our ode 2. So the timing was going to be perfect. We were going to be putting this episode out right as Mario Odyssey turned 5 years old. We're a week late on that, but oh well. We're getting to it
Hmm.
now. And let's talk about it. Mario Odyssey. How has it been 5 years?
I
Like,
know,
I'm
man.
gonna
It
I'm gonna
is.
say
It
that
does not feel
first.
like that.
Like,
Yeah.
um,
It does and it doesn't,
right,
right? Like,
because
yeah.
I can think about it and I think, yeah, okay, 2017 when this thing came out. 2017 was a while ago, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like 5 years since I experienced it for the first time.
Yeah.
Which
Uh-huh.
I don't know if that makes any sense, but yeah, I guess it's because it still feels kind of fresh somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know how
Yeah.
that works exactly, but I can still so vividly remember that initial like day or two of playing that game when we got it on launch, and it doesn't feel like 5 years have passed since then.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, I have never replayed this game, which I'm surprised. I think that's just because whenever I get the craving for it, I just go back and collect more moons because I'm still not entirely done with it, which isn't as fun as playing the main campaign the first time and re-experiencing some of the levels. Like the things like the levels and the bosses that start out each kingdom, and then once you complete it, you can never really repeat it again. But yeah, it's still fun to just go back, be in that world, control Mario, see all the kingdoms again, hear all the music again. Man, this game just holds up, man. Right? Like 5 years later,
Yeah.
I'd love it. I think even more than I did at the time. Just reflecting on that weekend I played it, I often say like the weekend that it came out was like my favorite video game weekend of all time because like I beat it that Sunday. Like we got it on Thursday at midnight and then had some classes on Friday. And then just I remember you coming over and sitting on my couch and we were playing on our switches and handheld like that first day that it had come out. And then yeah, I played it all weekend, beat it Sunday morning, and it was just like, man, it was just the because it's not that long of a game to beat the first time. It only
No.
takes like 10-ish hours to run through, but then there's so much there if you want to go back and collect more moons. And the post game is phenomenal. Like with what happens after that unlocks like hundreds of new moons across all the kingdoms after you complete the game. Yeah, gosh, this game's just amazing.
All right, so I have new new headphones. Let's let's move on from that. Getting back to Mario Odyssey, it really changed up a lot of what 3D Mario had been in the past, from the capture mechanics, costumes, stuff like that. What were some of the changes in Mario Odyssey that you felt like stood out, and if there was anything that the game featured that you didn't particularly like?
The costumes are the main thing that I loved. I just Link and Mario in the same year just underwent radical wardrobe changes. Like with Link, all the clothes you could have him wear in Breath of the Wild, and then Odyssey had a ton also that you could wear. And I liked all the little missions that came from that. Like, oh, I really need a doctor, and you go and buy the doctor suit. You talk to the same guy, and it's like, oh, I needed a doctor. Here's a moon, and you just get a moon for that. I really like that. And just all the costumes are really cool references to a lot of Nintendo history across a ton of the different costumes. Like there's a Satellaview costume in there. Like what the heck is that? Like it's crazy that that's in there. My favorite was the Builder Mario costume from Mario Maker, the with the yellow hard hat and the red overalls. I wore that pretty much the entire game, except when I had to wear something different. The football player was one that I like too. Baseball uniform. Like there's just some really cool costumes in there, and that's something that I hope returns because yeah, Mario has worn the same thing forever, and to be able to change it up and mix and match, and like there's, I wish that you could play as Luigi. That was one thing I didn't like, or one thing that I would want in a sequel is that I thought Luigi's role was extremely limited in Odyssey, just as the Balloon Worlds DLC. But yeah, that there were Luigi, Wario, Waluigi costumes in there was just super cool. And then the platforming, just throwing the hat, diving off the hat, that extra jump that kind of gave you just totally changed the parkour and the platforming of Mario Odyssey in a really fun way. You're like, there's so many cool jumps, like throw the hat, long jump off the hat, throw the hat again, dive off, bounce off, dive again. It's like you can do like that. You can go so far, like laterally, by throwing the hat and diving off of it. And that just made for some super fun jump attempts. So yeah, there's a ton of really cool changes like that that I liked.
Yeah, the mobility of Mario and Super Mario Odyssey was really satisfying to pull off certain moves. Like if you
Yes.
wanted to, if you wanted to get to a higher level, you could like wall jump off of something and then throw the cap and then bounce off the cap and try and like work your way up. Like it wasn't necessarily that you needed to do it in certain instances, but it was always fun to try and test the game and be like, all right, can I actually do this? Like how far can I take uh the cap and the platforming that it gives you
Yeah.
and get to certain locations. The capture mechanic to me is the best thing about Mario Odyssey because you already have the wonder of discovering the different worlds that you go to. Like each time you go to a new kingdom, that's always a ton of the fun is being like, all right, where am I going to go next? There's so many different kingdoms. Like what could possibly be next? And part of that was also because you would get a new capture ability in each of the kingdoms. So not only were you looking forward to what things you would see at the next kingdom, it was also, all right, what's the new capture? What new gameplay style am I going to do? What does that mean for maybe if there's like a boss encounter or something like that? Like, how does that change how I play each of these different kingdoms?
Yeah.
and it kept the game fresh throughout its runtime. I think if there's one thing I want to see in the next Mario game, it is that to continue, because I feel like there's one, it was so much fun originally, and two, I feel like there's a lot of untapped potential with the capture abilities.
Yeah, a sequel could introduce a ton of new ones. And yeah, there's just so many fun ones. Like stacking the Goombas is super memorable. Yeah, I think there's a lot of cool new enemies you take over. Like I like the Easter Island heads that you have the sunglasses that can see like the hidden paths and things
Yeah,
like that. That are funny. But for me, it was just super fun capturing classic enemies like bullet bills flying around, creating the Goomba towers. Things like that were just super fun. That the Hammer Bros were super fun to take
yeah.
over because you could just chuck them so fast to take out blocks and enemies. That was really cool. Yeah, I also think that the capture mechanic could be explored further in a sequel. And something I really think about Odyssey is that it finally made power ups in 3D feel good to me, because outside of 3D World and 3D Land, I've never really liked using power ups in a 3D Mario game. Because like we talk about Galaxy and how you have you get a fire flower and there's like a timer and it's like, oh, you have this fire flower for 20 seconds and then it disappears, and it just like never really sat right with me in its implementation in that game. And it's kind of the same in 64. You get the flying cap and you only have it for a little bit. So I really like that in Odyssey, it's your choice how long you want to use the specific ability you get from capturing, and then hop out, hop back in, and just the puzzles they do with that. And they're just genius. There's so many amazing little puzzles and gameplay ways that they use these captures that they definitely could expand upon.
Yeah. Another change that I appreciated was, one, the fact that we have two different types of currency and the value of each of the
Yeah,
currencies. So you have the different purple coins that you can collect in each of the different kingdoms, and you can collect there is specific costumes and items related to that kingdom.
stickers for the Odyssey.
Yeah. Which
Yeah,
I think, one, is really cool. That gives you more incentive to look around and find things, and it's way more enticing than like blue coins or any of this other
yeah,
nonsense where it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel fun to collect, and the reward doesn't feel like that satisfying, especially in
yeah.
Sunshine's case, where they weren't required at all. So I appreciated that there was another thing to collect that I actually wanted to collect, because it gave me stuff that I could use and was interesting to use. But also with regular coins, I felt that they had so much more utility. Not only were you able to use them to buy all these different things, which meant that you actually needed to collect them beyond just lives, which in the old games could stack up so high that it was absolutely pointless to try and
Yeah.
go for the coins. And if it was level based, you would have to collect a certain amount of coins within the level, or else they all disappear because you exit the level and you have to go back in and you lose them all. So it felt like why is there really any point to me collecting these coins? But here you spend them to buy a ton of the costumes, which you want to do because the costumes are super cool. And when you die, you lose coins instead of lives, which I think just gives them so much more value than they had in previous games.
Yeah, it was a great change. Because you could also buy moons at every store, and that was like one of the moons that you wanted to buy in each kingdom was go to the crazy cap and buy one moon. So that was something you needed coins for too. So yeah, I thought that was a great change, and getting rid of lives was something that Mario should have done a long time ago, and then finally did in
Yeah.
Odyssey.
Yeah, I still remember with Mario Galaxy where you collect all these lives, and when you shut the game off and turn it back on, the lives are all gone. It's like, what is the point of
Yeah,
this?
that is
Like,
so dumb.
why am I
And then,
collecting
like, if
all
you had
of
a second
these?
file, you could go and like talk to Toad or whatever. It was like, "Oh, Peach sent you 100 lives," and yeah, it was
It's like, all right,
silly.
thanks, Peach. Where are you getting all these?
Yeah,
Why am I
yeah,
struggling to find one out here and you have like 100 that you can just send me anytime?
yeah,
Yeah, they kind of lost all meaning at a certain point. So I appreciated that they changed that with the coins.
yeah.
Before we get into our wish list for whatever comes next for 3D Mario, what is your 3D Mario ranking as of now, and where does Odyssey sit on that ranking?
Odyssey's first by actually not a ton, because I really like the second one on my list too, which is 3D World plus Bowser's Fury. Just very different games. That game is 3D World is special because it's like one of the greatest co-op games ever to me. Like it is just so much fun, and the bite-sized levels that are just constantly shaking things up, and you see some amazing things in that game too, just in a very different way. But Odyssey does top it just because of the scope of it, and just how innovative and different it is. But second is 3D World, and then Bowser's Fury was just a great addition in the Switch version that we both really enjoyed. And then after that is I like Galaxy 2 over Galaxy 1. So those are my third and fourth place. And then 3D Land is in fifth place, the forgotten 3D Mario game. And then Sunshine is sixth, and 64 is last. Really was not huge on those when I played them in the 3D All Stars collection. Loved the first half of Sunshine, which is what propels it over 64. Like, I really loved the first few worlds of that game, but wow, the second half was a challenge. That was tough to get through.
Yeah, and to pick the one game where there's so many bogus stars to be the one where you have to do all of those missions to be able to get to the end is absolutely brutal.
Yeah.
And just gives no incentive to doing any of the other levels. Like, as a kid, when I didn't know that they had no meaning, I was like, oh, I'm going to collect these. But now that I know, I'm like, all right, I don't need to do the 8th shine in any of these worlds. It means nothing to me. Like, I'm not going to collect all the blue coins. I'm not getting 100%, whatever. Yeah. For me, Odyssey sits at number 1. I think I'd put Galaxy at 2. Then Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury at 3. Mario Galaxy 2 at 4. And that's only because I haven't played Galaxy 2 in a long time. If Mario Galaxy 2 was part of that collection, which I think it should have been, maybe that's different. But I played Galaxy more recently and appreciated it a lot more than I did when I was originally playing it like a decade plus ago.
I just think Galaxy 2 has. I just love the Yoshi ad. I think the Yoshi levels
Yoshi's
are really
great,
fun, and there's just a lot of cool levels in there. And then all the post game Luigi stuff is really fun too. Like, it's just Galaxy but bigger, and they just went crazier with it. Like 3D Land to 3D World, like what I want to see in Odyssey 2. Like it just blew everything up a little more.
Galaxy 2's got to come out on Switch. Like, for real, I need it. I have it on Wii, not with me. But I do really want to replay it again. I think I've only played it the original time when it came out all those years ago. So as of now, Galaxy 2 would sit at 4. Then these ones are close just purely based on nostalgia factor. Nostalgia wants me to put Sunshine ahead of 3D Land. But upon replaying it, that game is absolutely brutal. And for every fun shine that there is, there's like 2 or 3 that just absolutely suck. So I think by a hair, I'd put 3D Land over Sunshine, then Sunshine 6, and Mario 64 at 7. I really wish they did more with Mario 64 on the All-Stars collection.
Yes, if that controlled like Odyssey did, that game would be awesome.
Yeah. And graphically, you look at Galaxy and Sunshine, and they look so good in that collection. You know, Sunshine's got other issues, but at the very least, it looks really pretty. And Mario 64 just doesn't. There's really not a whole lot there that they cleaned up too much beyond just kind of just sprucing things up slightly. I feel like that would have helped a lot if they cleaned that up and cleaned up some of the controls, or Mario doesn't just like slide off of things all the time. Like there's some things that could tighten there for sure. But yeah, that one didn't age very well to me.
No, it did not.
Unfortunately. Because I like a lot of its ideas, but it's just hard to go back to nowadays.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get into this wish list. So we each came up with a number of things that we wanted to see in whatever comes next for 3D Mario, because we don't know if that's Mario Odyssey 2 or if that's something completely different. So what do you got on your wish list for whatever comes next for 3D Mario?
I'm a simple man, just Odyssey 2. That's all I want is just a follow-up to Super Mario Odyssey. I was thinking about this, that like there's 7 3D Mario games, and 6 of them, they all have kind of a counterpart, right? Like we just listed them all. 64 and Sunshine's very much a follow-up to 64. Just adds the flood mechanic, but it's still the hub world with the shines or the stars. Galaxy 2 and Galaxy go hand in hand, and then 3D Land and 3D World go hand in hand. It's like Odyssey needs that counterpart. It seems like they really like to have 2 games before they move on to something else, because they have all these other ideas they didn't get to fit in to their original game. And I think I hope that's the case for Odyssey, and that we're going to see a follow-up to this formula of Mario before they do something different, because I don't think I don't think it's old yet. Like we said, the game still feels really fresh. I don't think anyone would be angry if they announced a sequel to Odyssey before doing the next step for 3D Mario. And Bowser's Fury wasn't quite enough for that. Like it was basically, that kingdom was basically like, here's the 3D world kingdom of Mario Odyssey. And it was really great, but it still didn't fully scratch the itch for a sequel. So I'd still really, really just like to see that. Yeah, that's it. That's the main thing. I have a couple other things I specifically want, but yeah, if it was just a sequel, I'd be very happy.
Do you think that as time goes on and we haven't heard anything about Mario Odyssey 2, that makes it less likely that it is a Mario Odyssey 2 as compared to something completely different? Because we have known about the sequel to Breath of the Wild for years now, and we haven't heard a
Yeah.
peep about what's next for Mario.
Yeah, it's tough because I look at the release dates of those three pairs of games I just mentioned, and what Galaxy and Galaxy 2 were like 2.5 years apart, and 3D Land and 3D World were like 2.5 years apart, and I think it's the same gap for 64 and Sunshine, and now here we are 5 years later and haven't even heard a word. Yeah, they've got to be making something. Like, there's got to be something in the works. I wouldn't be surprised if it is something different, but I just hope that it's not, or I hope that it maintains some of what makes the original one special.
Yeah, I think one, I would like Odyssey 2 above all else. I like I said earlier, I think that the capture mechanic still has so much left in it that they could go for.
Yeah.
I hope that continues beyond a possible Odyssey 2. For I feel like there's still a lot they could do there. At some point, they're going to move on from that. I understand that. And I feel like that could stay with the Odyssey branding. But I think that things like the costumes, the currencies and their usages and that sort of thing, I feel like that sort of stuff can stay regardless of if you want to make another Odyssey game or if you want to make just another 3D Mario game.
Yeah.
If it is a sandbox style Mario, I think that those changes and additions are things that should stay regardless of what happens.
Yeah. Well, I kind of started to flesh this idea out a little bit on our Lost show, but in the week since, I've just had even more time to think about it, and I've become even more attached to it. And that is that I want Odyssey 2 to visit both locations from the 3D Mario series as well as other locations throughout different Nintendo games. I think it would be so cool if Odyssey 2 was like, you go to Delfino Island from Sunshine. There's like some, like, you go to the observatory from Galaxy, and those are like the first two kingdoms, because in Odyssey we see Mushroom Kingdom from 64, but that's it. So if you kind of expanded on that and went to some of these places from other Mario games, and then I want like a Zelda kingdom, I want a Splatoon kingdom, I want an Animal Crossing kingdom, a Donkey Kong kingdom. That makes sense anyways. Like, throw Donkey Kong Island in there as one of the places that you go in an Odyssey 2. I think that would be the coolest thing ever if then you had like costumes based on these other Nintendo worlds you're going to. They've already thrown some of these characters into Mario Kart, so it's not like it would be that far-fetched for them to go there. Like the Hyrule Castle in Mario Kart, that looks like a Mario universe thing. Like, Mario fits in that universe. It totally works. And Odyssey mashes art styles a lot, like from the like fallen castle with the dragon that you fight to the Luncheon Kingdom. Like, they look very different from each other. So I think throwing him in like a Zelda universe or a Splatoon universe could work really, really well for an Odyssey 2. It would just be, I think, super incredible to go and see some of those worlds with the Odyssey gameplay, like capturing Zelda monsters with the capture mechanic and roaming around and doing things with them. Oh my gosh, it would just be amazing.
Yeah, and I think even just with the Mario nostalgia, I think would be a bunch of fun if you
Yeah.
one have Delfino Plaza or something like that you can travel to. But beyond that, if you could have a capture ability for Sunshine Mario and you get Flood and you're able to go through the areas with Flood, like even something as simple as that would be so cool. And the amount of time in between Mario Odyssey and Mario 64 is the same, if not shorter, than the distance between an eventual Mario Odyssey 2 and Super Mario Sunshine.
Yeah.
So it's time. Hop into that nostalgia of those older Mario games. And if they don't want to go as far as doing like all of these different Nintendo properties that aren't tied to Mario. Maybe even just stick it with Mario characters. Whether
Yeah.
that's going back to old games or going to like Yoshi's Island or going to
Wario
a
Land.
DK world,
Yeah.
Wario. Like even if they wanted to do something a little bit smaller like that, I feel like there's a bunch of different places they could go.
Yeah. A Luigi's Mansion could be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, they could totally do that. Yeah.
Do I think they're going to do it? No.
No.
Would
But
it
it's
be
what I
really
want.
cool if they did?
Yeah.
I do think that if there was a Mario Odyssey 2, that there's a more than 0% chance that they would revisit like Sunshine or something like
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
beyond old Mario games, I feel like chances are slim. But
Yeah. It'd be
would
cool,
be
though.
cool. Yeah.
And then the last thing on my wish list is I kind of mentioned it earlier, but Luigi. I want Luigi to be playable in this game. I think that would be fun if he got his own Cappy, like Cappy's little brother, who's a coward, and he just played with him, and you could still do all the captures and things like that. Because Luigi, it's fun to play as Luigi in Mario games. Mixes things up. Pretty much every Mario game you can play as Luigi at some point. So yeah, I think it'd be really cool if he was in there.
Yeah, and have a slightly different gameplay style with him sliding a little bit, being a little bit faster with higher jumps and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Could switch things up a little. Yeah, I'd love to have Luigi as a playable character. Maybe even go beyond that. Bring back Mario 64 DS and get some Wario or Yoshi action. I mean, we've already had Yoshi as a capture in in the
Get
Mario
Peach
64
in there,
world,
like
so.
3D World. Like she doesn't need to be captured again in Odyssey 2. Like
It'll be captured by the cap instead.
Yeah, because she has the crown, so she could use the crown as her Cappy. And yeah, it'd be fun if you could play as Peach.
Yeah, multiple playable characters would be cool.
Mm-hmm.
A couple other things for me. We talked about Bowser's Fury a little bit, and I think it would be cool to bring some of those ideas into a Mario Odyssey 2 as maybe 2 or 3 of the kingdoms that you go to and visit.
Yeah.
Because as it is, it works great as this little pack-in title alongside 3D World. But as its own standalone game, I don't think I would want to play a 3D Mario game that acts completely like Bowser's Fury over a full runtime. I don't think that would work very well.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that if you take that idea and that concept of having this relatively wide open kingdom and then implementing that as maybe 2 or 3 of the kingdoms that you can go and visit alongside all these other ones, I think that that'd be really cool and just be fun to explore around some of these bigger areas alongside maybe some of the smaller locations that you go to.
I agree, because Bowser's Fury had really good just pure platforming challenges, and that's something that Odyssey doesn't lack, but it doesn't have a ton of. Like the most platforming stuff, there's some in the post-game stuff where you get the new warp pipes all around the kingdoms that you go down, and there's new moons down there, and there's a lot of good platforming stuff in there. And then there's the challenges where you throw your hat on the scarecrow, and then it's like you have to do a platforming challenge without your hat. But it's not a ton. Most of it is the exploration, the sandboxing, just the fun parkour. Like pure Mario 3D platforming, like in that vein of 3D World, is lacking a little bit, and that's what Bowser's Fury did really well. So yeah, if there's a little bit more of that in the sequel, that'd be cool.
Yeah. And then my last thing, I think there should be slightly less moons than in the original Mario Odyssey, because it was what, 999?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
was the max amount of moons. I don't think that it needs to be on the level of a Mario Galaxy, Sunshine, or 64, where we're dropping back to 120 shines or stars. But to me, 999 felt a little bit overkill, because you would get to a point where you had 200 or 300 left to go, and it was all kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
Like it kind of felt like they were out of ideas for what they wanted to do in these specific worlds, but they were also like, all right, we need to hit this 999 moons because it's a cool number. 999, that's a ton. And so they kind of just implemented the same ideas over and over and over to get to that level. I think that it could be a little bit tighter if you say cut that in half, 500 moons, and have a little bit less in the way of repeating moons. That's still a ton of moons to collect, but maybe a little bit less in the way of just doing the same things over and over again, just to be able to get to a level as high as as basically 1,000 moons. But I know
Yeah.
that on last week's show you had a slightly different opinion on that.
Yeah, I think that like in past games to unlock like Victory Road or things like that, like the final level, you needed everything. But in Odyssey, you only need like I think the number is like 700 that you need to unlock that final level. And so to me, that's them saying like you're not meant to collect them all. Just like in Breath of the Wild, you're not meant to collect all 900 core rocks. You're meant to collect enough to upgrade your inventory as much as you want. And I think that the moons are kind of the same. It's like they just scattered them everywhere. So it's like the ones you find to progress, like they want you to constantly be discovering them. They don't want crazy people to collect all 1,000 of them, which many have done. I'm trying to do, but I'm at the point where I don't want to anymore. So I get what you're saying that some of the content isn't super compelling, but yeah, you could trim it down a little bit. I don't disagree, but I just think that it was never meant for you to get them all. It was meant for you to get just so you're constantly finding them. And if you find a challenge you don't want to do, there's literally hundreds of other options of where you can go and find a moon. And that's something that made the game really accessible, is that a lot of them are really easy to find. So anyone can beat Mario Odyssey. Like it's not really a difficult game, but then if you are a completionist, there's a ton of challenge out there for you. Some that I don't like the hint art one is
Yeah,
I
it's not
hate
fun.
those. Get rid of those. Yeah, those are
Yeah.
not fun at all.
Yeah, if we're gonna be getting rid of anything, one, the hint art, two,
Yeah.
screw the volleyball.
Oh
The
yeah.
volleyball, or if you want to
Yeah.
keep the volleyball in for whatever reason, make it a little bit less brutal. Because if you
Yeah.
want to get all of the moons there, that last level that you have to hit is absolutely insane.
Yep.
Like,
I don't think I've done it.
I think from what
Yeah.
I've heard that you can cheese it in 2-player mode, which is how a lot of
Oh,
people did
okay.
it. But you
Okay.
shouldn't have to do that. It should be
No, you
possible in
shouldn't.
single player.
Yeah.
But that's about it, to be honest, of stuff that I would just like wholesale like cut. The hint art and the volleyball. Everything else, I think I would keep in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. Oh, I also didn't like the moons where you had to refight the bosses in the Mushroom Kingdom.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those are kind of throwaway to me too. So yeah, I agree with you. There's some I didn't care for. Um, but I don't. To me, that doesn't mean it needs to be smaller because it's like, yeah, I just didn't do it because I didn't need to because I unlocked the last level, and I guess to me that's the point of them. But yeah, I didn't really like having to go and fight the bosses again, so I never finished those.
But
Yeah,
I guess in that same vein, it's not like a Super Mario Sunshine situation where for certain challenges the game is literally forcing you to and you can't
yep,
progress unless you do it.
yep.
Here,
A
if
lot of
you don't want
choice.
to do certain challenges, you can probably get away with not doing most of those. So
Yeah,
I do appreciate it for that. And that's Mario Odyssey. 5 years. And
5
I'm
years.
hoping that the next time that we're here in 10 years to talk about a decade of Mario Odyssey, that we have a Mario Odyssey 2 to talk about.
I think we're gonna see the next Mario next year. I don't know if it's gonna be 2D or 3D because I'm really on the fence about that because I do think it's very much time for the next evolution of Super Mario Brothers. I don't. I think we're done with new Super Mario Brothers. I really
God, I
do.
hope so.
I would be absolutely shocked if they came out and were like, "It's new Super Mario Bros. Switch." I think we're done with that. I think we're moving on. I don't think it's going to be another Mario Maker, but and that's another reason that tells me it's going to be something radically different. It's got to be something you couldn't really just go do in Mario Maker. So I kind of feel like it's time for 2D Mario. We've also heard rumors of Donkey Kong, maybe, which makes sense too, because there's going to be a Donkey Kong movie, and the largest Donkey Kong theme park that we know of is also is also
Have
coming.
we gotten updated statistics on that? Has that
No,
changed?
we haven't. We haven't. So, but I think next fall is time for Mario. I hope it's 3D. I wouldn't be shocked if it's 2D, but yeah, I think it's next fall because we got Zelda in the spring, Fire Emblem, Pikmin next year. They're going to have something big in the fall. You look at their franchises that they haven't hit in a while. It's like we're getting Zelda. We just got Splatoon. Mario Kart's got the DLC. Like, what's it going to be? I think it's Mario. I think that next fall is the next Mario platformer.
I'd be interested in a 2D Mario if they're switching things up completely. I got so
Yeah.
burned out of New Super Mario Brothers that I would be very curious to see what comes next. But yeah, I would much rather have a 3D Mario game. And it's time, right? It's been
Yep.
5 years.
It is
5 years
definitely
since
time.
Mario Odyssey. Whether
Yeah.
it's been a long time since a lot of straight up new Mario experiences. I guess Mario Maker 2 counts because that had a single player campaign in there
Yeah.
as well, but a little bit limited on the
And Bowser's Fury
main
last
Mario
year.
front.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah. Which last year, but it was almost 2 years ago because it was February of 21 and it's now November of 22. So it was a very long time ago now. But yeah, next year makes sense to me. I feel like they had 3D All Stars and Bowser's Fury come out so close back to back. I can see why they wanted to maybe take a break from 3D Mario, let 3D All Stars sell till they stopped selling it, and then Bowser's Fury continue to sell beyond that. But yeah, I'm sure that the numbers on those on 3D World is starting to drop. So it's time to get something new out there for Mario. All we had for Mario, that's not true. We actually had a lot of Mario this year, just no platformers. We had the
The ones that I
Booster
want.
Course Pass started this year, and Strikers and Sparks of Hope all came out this year. So there was a lot of Mario, just not necessarily what people wanted.
Good old Strikers.
I played that game recently.
Is there anybody playing?
Nope. It took forever to find an online match, and then I did, and then they wiped me because all that's left are people that are really
that know
good.
how to just launch stuff off the walls and do like acrobatic nonsense.
Yeah. Yeah. I stand by that. I like the gameplay in that game. For me, that does not appeal to a wide general audience, but because I played that game so much, I still like playing it, and it's a shame there's no one on there to play it with me. But
And it's a shame that so much of the game was built around that online component that could just die super easily.
Yeah,
when you pull that out, the club mechanic was the biggest new addition, and it's nothing.
I'm still happy with my purchase. I got 35 hours out of that game. That's fine. You did not. You got like 3 hours.
Half an hour?
Oh my god!
An hour?
Half an hour. That's terrible.
Because a lot of it came from the playtest.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving on from Mario Odyssey 2, before we wrap up, we can talk about what we've been playing for the past 2 weeks since we lost that show last week. We had a good discussion on Xenoblade 3, and we get to do that all over again.
Yes, we did.
Before we talk about Xenoblade 3,
Cuphead?
Yeah, because that's all I've done is Xenoblade 3. So you want to run through any of these other titles that we talked about last week? Technically,
I'm still playing some Splatoon 3, of course, and then Tunic. I've been picking up and playing a little bit. I canceled Game Pass a few months ago, so I just bought Tunic on Switch because I thought it seemed like a really nice handheld game. It is. I really like it. It runs at a solid 30. It never drops, but it is at 30 FPS. It's good. It's good enough. Yeah, and I like playing it in handheld a lot. So yeah, it works out there. Fun game. I'll talk about that more maybe when I've played a little bit more of it, since yeah, we got a lot to get to here. Fall Guys has Doctor Who costumes, which I'm like, God, why do you have to spend real money on these now? The free to play has totally sapped my interest in Fall Guys, which is a shame. I don't play it anymore. We used to play it all the time and just don't really play it anymore. But the Doctor Who costumes are really cool, so I might have to jump back in and grind up the currency to be able to afford them.
Were you able to afford any of the costumes as part of the free to play?
Yeah. Zach was able to buy one of the Sonic characters, I think, or Terry Bogard.
Complete set.
Yeah. Yeah, he could buy one of the costumes.
One.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see. Doctor Who is one of the franchises. Was like, do I throw $5 at that? We'll see. I don't really play it anymore. Huh?
Why? It was just weird. Like, why is that there?
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't expect it. It kind of came out of nowhere, but there's some cool costumes in there, and I'm like, oh man, that's yeah. But we'll see. And then the main thing I played over the last 2 weeks, besides Xenoblade, was Cuphead, the Cuphead Delicious Last Course, and wow, it is just an amazing add-on to what is already a phenomenal game. I think that I had kind of forgotten how much I love Cuphead, like until I went and played this DLC, because I played Cuphead once in 2017 when it came out, and it was on my sister's Xbox, so I never played it again because it was on her platform. I never owned the game, and so I was like, yeah, that was a great game. And since 2017, like that's kind of more, we just played a ton of games. It's like when I got my PlayStation, so like I've just played a ton of more franchises, and I look back at Cuphead, I'm like, wow, that's one of the greatest games I've ever played. Like it's probably in my top 25 games of all time upon this revisit, because it is just the exact type of difficulty I like. I compare it to something like Elden Ring, where I was telling you, Kev, when I play Elden Ring, I get paranoid because it's like, oh man, is my build good enough to beat this boss? Am I at high enough level to beat this boss? So I have the right weapon to fight this enemy. And in Cuphead, it's like, you have what you're going to have basically from the entire game at the start of the game. Yeah, there's some minor things you can change about your build, but it's only preference at that point. It's like, okay, do you want the extra health point but for lower attack power? And it's like your character's pretty balanced all the way through. So it's like it's just you against the game, and there's nothing you can do to go and improve. You just have to go in there and do it. And I really like those style of games. Celeste is that style of game. 1001 Spikes is that style of game. And Cuphead is that style. And it is just so phenomenal. And the DLC is like, there's only 6 bosses, but they're all top tier. Like, there's not one that I would cut out. They were all amazing. They changed the gameplay in super meaningful ways. Like, there's one where the camera changes, so like you're on this airplane, and then the boss will hit your airplane, and the screen will reorient sideways. So then your airplane is like it's on the right side of the screen, and like to shoot up, you still just point up on the controls. Your controls don't change, but it's just super disorienting. I was tilting my head to look at the screen, and then you go upside down. You're just rotating like counterclockwise, like every 10 seconds, and it's just insane. And there's a couple of airplane levels that are super cool, and the final boss is one of the hardest things I've ever played in any game ever. It took us over 3.5 hours to do the final boss. It was insanity how long it took. We took multiple breaks. We went to dinner. We watched a movie, and we're just like, we're going back to this thing, just beating our heads against this thing. So satisfying when we eventually got it. There's a mechanic in the 4th phase that we were stupid and overlooked. That we figured out, like, and then after we figured it out, we beat it like 2 attempts later because it was just game changing when you figure out something that you can do that they don't tell you. It was a really cool moment there too, and it's just gorgeous. Like my girlfriend who does play some games walked in and she's like, I've never seen a game like this, and it's true. It just looks like a Mickey Mouse cartoon, and it's just amazing how this game looks. Yeah, so I love the Cuphead DLC, and I'm considering doing a run back through just the main game on my own because I've never played it solo. I imagine it's a lot harder since you don't have a teammate there to revive you when you die.
Does it not scale to?
It scales. The health is doubled for 2-player,
Okay.
but you can revive. You can revive each other. So it's a different type of difficulty, but it's just such a phenomenal game. The DLC it's just amazing. It is just so good. Yeah, if you don't want to play this game, just go watch some of these bosses on YouTube because they're so cool. Like the final boss especially, it's like a bullet hell. It's just crazy how much is on the screen at once. It's super cool.
Yeah, Cuphead's a game that I enjoy watching other people play. I have very little desire to play it for myself, but I can commend it for what it does, for its art style, for its really tight gameplay, and those brutal bosses that I've seen.
Yeah, just amazing boss design. Yeah, and the DLC I think is harder than the main game. I don't think we were just rusty. Like I think it was
terrifying.
Just tougher. Yeah,
that it can get harder. Like if there's ever a sequel, does it just ramp up the difficulty even higher than what they achieved previously?
Yeah, I hope there's a sequel. I hope they return to this and make another one because it's just so cool. There's so many different styles. Like basically, food is the theme of the Delicious Last Course. You're collecting ingredients for a chef, and every boss is a different ingredient. And it's like, man, there's just so many different themes that they could go for in Cuphead. Like, yeah, there's just so many different types of bosses, and they're just amazing. It's no wonder it takes so long for this thing to come out. And I played this on Switch, and it looks amazing on Switch. It looks great, runs great, pretty much the same as Xbox. There's like an occasional moment where it will drop like a single frame. Like you'll notice a tiny stutter, but it barely ever happens. So yeah, this thing is very, very playable and very good on Switch, and it feels really right at home on Switch too.
Yeah, I think that was a good decision. Bringing that and like Ori and stuff to Switch, I think those games work really well.
Yep. Ori runs kind of like garbage on Switch, though. Right? It's not a really good place to play it.
Well,
yeah, it's there though. That's all I got.
Want to talk about some Xenoblade stuff?
Sure.
So I think we were talking before the show. Last week, I was right on your heels.
Yeah,
and I have since passed you.
Oh, it's over. And I'm so busy at work this week. Like I've been working overtime a little bit. And then Sonic comes out in a week from today. It's gone.
Pokemon on the horizon too.
Yep. Yeah, but yeah, I'm glad you're playing it. I didn't know when you were going to pick it up, so I'm glad that you're like 30 hours in now, probably.
I'm still about 25 hours in.
Yeah, I think I've done more side quests than you. There's a lot of side
Yeah,
content I have gone and done that you haven't gotten to yet. So maybe I'll gain some time back when you take a break to go do that.
maybe if I've
Yeah.
got new stuff to play. Yeah, I'm gonna talk about the leveling and some things that I just found out recently in a bit. Um, but yeah, it's man, is it good? I think first off, this is something that every Xenoblade game has done really well, and Xenoblade 3 is no different. But just the exploration and the ability to see the world at different angles is something that I really appreciate. There are certain spots, even very early on, where you go on this journey across this area of the map, and then you get towards the end of that area, and it allows you to even just look back regularly, but sometimes climb up onto a cliff and be able to view all of this area that you went across. These areas are so massive and have varying biomes, even just in the same map, like within the same chunk of level that you can see all at once. And you can like trace your steps back from where you started on this journey. Sometimes characters in a game will say, all right, let's go on this really long journey. And sometimes it does not feel like a journey. Sometimes it just feels like I've gone like two tiles over and boom, I'm at the
Yeah.
next area and moving on to the
Yeah.
next thing. But I think what Xenoblade does really well is allow you to look back and realize that it is a journey. You're still only 25 hours in, but that was all of this area that you covered. And you can remember certain things that happened at different areas of the map that you're looking back on now. I just love the scale and the design of these worlds. It makes it so fun to explore and explore off the beaten path to try and find some of these locations where you can see all of that or find just any other random stuff that they've hidden throughout that aren't required uh, to go down. They're just side paths, and you can go down the main path if you want to. Like I just love the worlds that they craft in these games, and Xenoblade 3 is no different than the others.
Yeah, the world is huge, and like sometimes you say go off the beaten path and find things. It's like sometimes you find an entire colony, and it's like you're just like, whoa,
Yeah.
okay, I guess that's here. Yeah, it's super cool. I love the side content in this game. Yeah, I'm over 30, like 32 hours in, I think, and yeah, because I just do every side quest. I really find the side quests meaningful in this game because one, I really just like the story, and it's fun building your kind of affinity rank with the colonies. Like that adds a whole new motivation for the side quest. And I think that even some of the side quests are very generic, but a lot of them are well written enough where it's like, yeah, this feels like it does feel worth doing. Um, like, oh, these people don't know that they've been liberated and think that they still need to fight in this war. Will you go tell them they don't need to do that? And then you're like, yeah, that seems worth doing. And then you go and do it and get a lot of affinity. So yeah, I really like all the side content and the main quest too. I think the story is awesome. We both just hit a pretty big twist, kind of a revelation a few hours back that we talked about
Yeah.
when we were talking about this game off mic, and it's like the story is so cool. I love the characters. I love the party. They are all getting their time to shine. Like each cutscene, you don't know who's going to be the focus there. Like even Tyon, who I thought wasn't really going to be that developed, he's getting his backstory
Yeah,
now,
he
and they're
is.
talking about him a lot.
It's
And
good.
yeah, it's really really cool. I didn't expect how hard I'm falling for this game, but it is so good.
Yeah. I really like the story. The side content is really good. I like the hero missions. They do feel
Hmm.
like basically main story quests, and some of them are entirely optional where you can just
Yeah,
either pass by them because you're not high enough level, or sometimes if you didn't go down that section of the map at that point, it's just not there. And you don't get that character until you
yep.
go back and do it, which is wild.
I'm trying to do
Um,
them all because I think they're all really good. Like I just want to do all of them, which is why I'm taking my time with this thing.
yeah. The changes that have been made to kind of streamline certain things from the previous games, I really appreciate the gem crafting specifically. Man, in the old games, you would have to craft you would have to craft a gem for each character to equip. So if you
That
wanted two
sucks.
characters to hold the same gem, you would need to craft that gem. And then let's say you get the next level of that gem. You can now craft level 2 or level 3 of that gem. You got to go craft it again. It's just constantly crafting. Whereas here, you're basically just crafting down this list. And when you craft, let's say on a gem, you craft the level 2 and then you craft the level 3. All of the gems just turn to level 3 because it's like, why would I have a level 1 equipped? I can just equip the level 3. It's fine.
Yeah.
And you can equip multiple gems to the same person if you only craft the one. You only need to craft it one time and then it's done. I really appreciate the streamlining there. Being able to swap party members in battle. You don't use it all of the time, but I do really appreciate it in certain boss fights where you need a heal right away and you can't wait for the computer to just wait to decide if they want to do a
Yeah.
heal at a certain point. You can swap over to them, do a heal, swap back. Um, Again, it doesn't come in handy too often, but there are certain times where I am very glad that that's a feature. And then just having the whole party be able to fight at any one time, I think is so great. With the previous games, you would kind of forget about certain characters, and it didn't really feel like you were traveling with them because you would pick your group that you really liked, and some characters didn't really feel like they had that much utility as compared to some of the other characters that you would get. And so they
Hmm.
would just be relegated. And then you would get into these cutscenes. It's like, oh, we've been on this long journey. I'm like, yo, you have not done anything. You have not been battling at all because I haven't needed you. I appreciate that while they do still have the ability to swap out the hero characters that you acquire throughout the game so that you can kind of get a different build throughout if you want to change that up, that you still have that main cast of 6 always doing something at any one time. So it feels like they are all doing something and that there are certain story beats with them all feel earned because they were
And
actually there
and
doing
always
stuff.
changing. Like you can change their classes. Like you'll change their classes like every like 5 or 6 hours when you level them up to rank 10.
Yeah.
And it's just like, man, now they're completely different. Like I've been playing as Uni for like the last 5 hours because she's the hammer class, and I think that one is just so much fun to play as. So I've been controlling her as like the main character for the last 5 hours of the game, and it's like that's just super cool.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of classes, so this is something that I figured out literally like 20 minutes before we started recording. So,
What?
you know how there is the feature where if you get the hero character, you can it goes to one of your main characters, and then
Yeah,
the other characters will slowly unlock that class as you fight with that character, or if you have the hero in your party.
yeah.
So that makes sense. And you get CP class points from doing these battles. I was trying to get, what is it? It's I forget her name. I'm so bad with names. The first hero that you get where she's there and then she has to leave.
Yeah, I don't remember her name. Silvercoat Ethel. There it is.
Ethel, there we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one, she leaves your party pretty early on, so
Hmm.
you don't have the ability to put her back into
Which is a
your
shame
party
'cause she's
to
cool. I
level up.
wish that
Yeah, and
I
I
had her.
really
Yeah.
I've been fighting as her playstyle a lot, and I really like it.
The dual swords, right?
Yeah, it's fun.
That's really good.
But I was trying to level it up because I wanted other characters to unlock it. I didn't have anybody that had unlocked it. And so I played as her class for like 3 or 4 hours and no one gained any extra affinity with
Yeah.
that class to level up. I don't think the game tells you this, but I looked it up online. If you are fighting any enemy that is 5 or more levels below your level, there you do not gain any CP to allow those characters to unlock the ability.
The game
So,
does not tell you that. And I'm at a
no,
point where I'm always fighting things that
I'm
are less than me.
way over leveled. I am consistently 6 to 8 levels higher than everything else. And the game doesn't tell you, so I was wasting all this time. I was already at level 10 with that class, but I was thinking, "Oh, okay, I just need to have somebody else unlock this ability so that they can start leveling it up and then I can swap over
Yeah.
instead of leveling up a different character." And now now I just wasted all that time that could have been done leveling up these different classes.
Man, that sucks.
So PSA, if you're wondering why they haven't been unlocking a certain class, it's because you're fighting enemies that are too low level. The game does not tell you this
Oh
at
my
all.
gosh.
It's baffling. Because I was
That
sitting here like, I have fought so many things. I've been playing for like 3 or 4 hours, and you're still gaining CP to level up normally. So you're still gaining the CP to level up the individual classes that the characters already have equipped, but you're not told that you're not gaining anything for the classes that they haven't unlocked yet.
Hmm.
It's weird. so
Yeah, it's super weird.
so now I'm swapping to a class that I haven't leveled up yet, but if I see an enemy that is possibly a similar level to me, which is not very often, I have to swap back to try and get that last little bit on one of the characters so that they can unlock it and I can
Uh-huh.
slowly start working it up on other characters.
Wow, that's terrible. I haven't seen an enemy my level in hours because I do all the side content. So I'm like level like 36 right now.
Yeah.
And like fighting things that are like level like 25.
Yeah, and if
Yikes.
and we were talking about this last week, if you use the chain attack and the XP bonuses that it gives you, that can level you up super fast too. Like there's a
Yeah.
lot of side content that I haven't done yet, but I've gained so many levels just because if you time it right, you can you can gain the XP multiplier to like 7 or 800 times if you get the
Hmm.
chain attack near when like a boss enemy dies. Like it's crazy. You can gain so many
Yeah.
levels and I was not aware that that kind of handicaps you in certain
Yeah.
ways.
Huh. Good to know.
So,
And then
yeah,
money also there's still no
be
use
aware of
for.
that. Yeah, yeah, money has no point. Beyond buying the food, I have
Buying
now
food.
realized that cooking food makes absolutely no sense because it makes more sense for me to spend 800 gold of my zillions of dollars instead of
I guess
wasting
you
these
just have to go
materials.
back to the specific colony that has the meal that you want.
I do,
Because
but
you,
if you
yeah,
remember which one it is, you can just
that's a good point. I'm done
fast
doing
travel
that.
back.
I'm done
Yeah.
cooking.
Because some of them I can't cook because I don't have the right ingredients and I can only cook
Yeah.
maybe like 2 or 3 times some of the ones that I can cook
You don't want to
before I
use
run
your
out of
Napa
ingredients.
coins.
But I could
Yeah.
just go spend 500-600 gold and get any of
Yeah.
the rest of the food that I want.
Yeah. There's some balance issues, but I think it's so freaking big. It's like you can spend 10 hours doing side stuff. Yeah, you're gonna get over leveled in a JRPG. And I appreciate its approach where it doesn't I like this more than it just scaling and you always fighting things your level. Because to me that makes it feel pointless. Like, well, why level up if
Yeah.
everything else is gonna level up too? Like it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I
And then it
appreciate
gives
that you
you that.
can over level yourself if that's what you want to do and that if the fights become really easy, well, that's because you fought a lot of guys already. That was a choice you made. I just
Mhm.
wish that it told you the repercussions of that decision uh
With the
somewhere,
classes. Yeah. Yeah, that's
but
crazy to me.
yeah, in theory it's fine, but after looking it up online and figuring that out, I looked through like all of my hints and tips and I couldn't find it anywhere. It doesn't say anything about it.
Yeah,
So
that's crazy.
be aware. Be aware of that if you're wondering why it takes so long to unlock certain characters and their abilities. But it's really good. I'm enjoying it a lot. The story's getting really good. There are a bunch of twists and turns that are happening here, and I'm only 25 hours in, and this game is 100 plus hours, so I can't even imagine where it's going to be going next. Like it
I
already feels like a
know.
lot has happened,
Yeah, I know, I
and
agree.
at best, I'm maybe getting close to a fourth of the way done with the main story. I don't
Yeah.
know, but
Yep.
crazy.
Yeah, and it's fun when you walk by these giant beasts that are like level 80 that you can't touch. That's a cool moment too. Like where it's just like,
Come
"Oh
back here
god."
eventually.
Yeah, uh-huh.
But not
Yeah,
today. They will
not
stop me
today.
immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. And that's probably all I'm going to be playing close to the end of the year. I know that you have
Not
Sonic
same.
and Pokemon. Yeah, before we wrap up, this is the
This is it.
last episode before Sonic Frontiers comes out. So
Oh
on
my
the
god.
eve of Sonic Frontiers, what are your hopes? What are your last remaining hopes here before you actually get the game in your hands?
I was just thinking something I think I've done a great job of, which is crazy because we talked about this game for 8 months straight. I don't feel like I know that much about it. Like I kind of when we decided to stop doing rumor roundup because I was like, I've seen enough. I don't want to see anymore. I know nothing of the story. I know nothing of like I know very briefly what some of the other areas look like besides the first one. I know what like 3 of the cyberspace levels are, and I think there's going to be a ton. Like I'm very happy at how little I know about this game. I think that Sonic Forces, I played at E3. I knew a lot about it. There wasn't much to know because it was so short. But for this game, I'm just excited that I'm going in knowing very little about a new Sonic game, and I'm just excited about that. I think it's just like it hasn't really hit me that we're like 6 days away from the next 3D Sonic. It's crazy.
And unlike Sonic Forces, with this game, you probably won't have it done by the time we record next week.
No, but I am taking Tuesday off of work. I'm gonna go. I have to work till like noon actually on Tuesday, and then I'm gonna go pick up my copy, come back, and just play all day. Like I'm gonna play all day on Tuesday, so I'll be like probably 15 hours in by the time we record later in the week. Like I'm gonna play a ton of this game. It remains to be seen if I'm gonna like do a completion run. I don't even know what the collectibles are really, or if I'm just gonna beeline it. We'll see, depending on how much I like it, what I
Yeah,
end up doing with it.
I think that decision will be made for you as you play through the game.
Yeah, but I am so excited for new Sonic and excited to talk about it on the show
That's next week.
next
Forward to
week.
that. Yeah. But that's going to do it for us on this week's episode of Ode to Games. We're here on Thursdays or Fridays when we have the audio for the episode.
Uh-huh.
On Apple
We've got
Podcasts,
it. We've got it
Spotify.
this week.
We do. Other podcast streaming services that you may use. We're on YouTube at Ode to Games for the video version of the podcast that you can check out every single week. We're on Twitter at Ode to Games. You can send an email to odegamescast@gmail.com. For Logan, I'm Kevin. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next week.